Essentially, the question you're trying to ask yourself is, when do I run out of money? Or when do I straight up run out of cash? And if you can answer that question and you're comfortable with the amount of risk, to be honest with you, everything else doesn't even matter. If you pick the right market and you have a decent asset, as long as you don't run out of cash and you have enough time, things will be fine.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odom and Steven Silverman.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odom, along with Steven Silverman. Steven, you had an interesting occurrence. It's not really an occurrence. It's an ongoing issue with one of the plazas that we manage.
Well, it's frustration because we're trying to do the best from our landlord. And, this is a case where the landlord did not properly take into account co-tenancy. And so in this plaza, we have a gym, and the gym's frankly very noisy.
I think I need to stop there because this was a landlord issue before we took over.
Correct.
And they made the decision way before we were involved to take on a gym.
Yeah, and so it's really interesting because on the face of it, the gym occupies the second floor of this retail plaza. And it seems nice because the gym's out of the way and everything else downstairs can be rented out for retail. The only problem they forgot is the noise when weights drop.
Yeah, weights, tires, everything else, music, bang, bang, bang. And this doesn't necessarily have to stop at a second level retail plaza. Second level retail plazas are hard guys. There's a reason why typically they're discounted on the top. It's hard to get that second floor leased, but this really has little to do with the second floor. It's aggravated by being on the second floor. But we have other plazas that we deal with, retail and retail plazas where gyms are present. And if they're blaring music all day long, there's a law firm next door. That's going to be a problem. You have to think about your co-tenants. You have to think about the placement of those tenants. Very, very important. When you're looking at a plaza, you're doing due diligence. Does the tenant mix make sense? And gyms can be a nuisance for more than just noise.
Well, I'm smiling while you're talking because I'm thinking of one other situation where we have an insurance company next to a dance school. And I can tell you that there's very little time during the day that the insurance brokers feel like cha-chaing down their hallway while they're listening to the music next door.
Yeah, co-tenants are very important. You need to make sure that you look at them and there's some common sense that's applied. But if not, you're going to end up with problems. And there is the right of use to peacefully be able to occupy a space that you as a landlord might become liable for if one of the tenants is disrupting the other tenants, and you're going to have to take matters into your own hands. It could diminish the value of your building if you're having to accept different types of tenants because you have a disruptive tenant in there. So guys, those are some things just to keep your head up when you're doing due diligence. And certainly us as property managers, we come across this issue quite frequently, and we're always thinking about how do we deal with these particular co-tenancy issues and how do we clean up messes. Oftentimes we're brought in after a mess is already made and we're trying to figure out how to resolve a problem. But if you head it off in the past, it can definitely make your life a lot easier going forward. Wanted to also remind, as I do on every show, that if you've not had an opportunity, please go to Google Play Store or Apple iTunes and leave us a review. It takes a tremendous effort for us to get guests on. I know from some of the feedback that I get from you, from emails, that we have an important message for you. And you guys like to listen to the information that we provide. The way we get those guests is by coercing them that this is a good investment of their time. You guys help with that by providing reviews that we can show our potential guests that you do pay attention and that it's important use of their time or important investment in their time to come onto our show. So if you've not done so, again, we would appreciate you going on to either the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store and leave us a review. Stephen, anything else before we get rolling into our guests? Another multifamily episode. We know from our listeners they love multifamily.
No, we're ready to roll, so let's rock and roll.
All right, guys.
Today, we have with us Omar Khan. Omar is a real estate investor with Boardwalk Wealth. Boardwalk Wealth is a private equity firm located in Dallas, Texas. They connect international investors with U.S.-based multifamily real estate opportunities. A unique focus that they have is helping Canadians identify real commercial real estate opportunities in the southern United States. Omar is a CFA with 10 years of investing across experience across United States and across real estate and other commodities. He has $3.7 billion in capital financing and M&A transactions and has syndicated large multi-million-dollar deals across the U.S. Omar is a global citizen who has lived in Dubai, Toronto, Calgary, and Dallas, and now he's investing in Florida. So, Omar, welcome to the Invest Florida show.
Thank you, guys. It's a great honor to finally be on your show.
Oh, yeah, we're excited to have you today, Omar. Why don't you start from square one? How did you get involved in real estate and why multifamily?
Well, that's a good question. I moved down from Canada about 3 years ago. And just to give you guys a background, my family has been involved in business for the past 3 or 4 generations. So real estate hasn't been our core business, but we've always invested our assets into commercial real estate. And just growing up, just through the process of osmosis, I was seeing anytime, we had good commercial assets like a shopping center or a strip mall, my dad or my uncle's fretting about, okay, should we sign this tenant? Is he a better quality tenant, even though he's paying less money? All of these small little operational things that now when I talk to people, I realize, wow, I spent like the first 18 years of my life just absorbing these things, assessing the quality of the tenant, assessing people, seeing whether they have the ability to pay 3 or 5 years into the future. So I just kind of grew up around the business inadvertently. And when I moved down 3 years ago to the US from Canada, I had some people in my network who had given me money to invest. And that's how I kind of started my journey in US real estate, at least. And I just did the typical thing, with my finance background. I reached out to all the private equity folks I knew, got connections, one door led to another door. And eventually what happened is people said, hey, this is pretty good, you're investing, but why don't you come to the other side? We really like what you're doing, how you approach all of this stuff. And that's how I got started.
And explain to people what a CFA is and how you use that prior to what you're doing now.
So it's a really boring way of saying that I spend my 20s just studying and working 100 hours a week, for the lack of a better word. So it's basically a chartered financial analyst. What it does is it's a gold standard in finance for portfolio management, investment analysis, financial analysis. Pretty much, if you're a portfolio manager or you're a high-ranking finance guy, there's a very good chance that either you have this or you are legally mandated to have this, and your work is not going to happen without it.
So, Omar, just coming from Canada, what prompted you? Was it the investment opportunities in the United States? What was the reason you came?
Well, I'd like to say it was the investment opportunities, but I came for a girl.
Oh, well, that's a long-term investment.
That's a really long-term investment, yeah.
Investment, Stephen, I think.
Yeah. And you know what? It's like one of those mortgages that, well, I'm not going to get myself into trouble. Never gets paid off.
I was going to say, don't get yourself into trouble.
Every episode, he seems to talk about his liabilities, and sometimes his wife doesn't like when he discusses liabilities.
Hey, but in my particular case, guys, I played, through sheer dumb luck, I played completely out of my league, and I don't know what happened for my wife to agree to marry me, but I'm so glad she did so far.
So let's talk a bit about. So you ended up in Dallas. Like, why is that? Also because of a girl?
No, what happened is, so my wife is a physician, so she's American trained and all of that kind of stuff. So we were debating, whether she moves up to Canada because I had a pretty good career there and all of that stuff, or whether I should move down because, again, with my stuff, it's pretty, and for her stuff even, it's pretty easy to move anywhere in the world. And it's so bureaucratic in Canada. I mean, I would have never thought about leaving Canada, but it is so bureaucratic for a foreign doctor, American trained even, to move to Canada that I mean, from our research, I mean, the entire Canadian government would have had to shut down just to let her in. So it was easier for me to move down just by the nature of my job. And when we were moving, she was in upstate New York finishing a residency. And I told her, I was like, look, if we're moving, I do not want to move to the Canada of the US. I want to move somewhere so warm where I don't even see snow again for the rest of my life. So me really was three options. It was Southern California. So I'm not a billionaire, not yet. So that's kind of out of the picture. It was Florida, but I knew so many people in Florida. I was like, oh man, I don't want to go to, another version of Canada. Again, I wanted to go somewhere new. And then it was Texas because I was in oil and gas, M&A. I'd come to Texas a few times. I really love the culture and the food and the people. So it was a pretty easy decision. I mean, all things considered. And we're very happy that we moved to Texas.
Yeah, I've been there a few times. I really enjoy the area. But you've turned your sights to Florida. And let's talk a little bit about that, how that occurred and why.
Well, see, now I think I should have moved to Florida because I've turned my sights to Florida. But so, life is a fun way of, coming back to different things that you just thought you would never do, but you did. Florida, primarily, look, we took just because of my background in finance and risk analytics and all of that kind of stuff. When I was deciding to place some of my own money, some of my network's money, and some of the money that we've raised, I said, I talked to a lot of folks, and the one thing that I was coming across a lot of times is that people who were really big in Dallas, as an example, not a lot of those folks, barring a few notable exceptions, they weren't really going down to Houston or San Antonio or Austin or, say, other areas. And the question I would keep asking people is, well, why not? You've got the money, you've got the knowledge. And I mean, look, in these days, it's not rocket science to move to a different city just for operations, especially if you've got the money and track record. And invariably, what would happen is when I talk to people, it's like, well, I don't know. I just don't feel like that market is good. And just with my quantitative background, I said, okay, that's not a good enough reason for me. So what I did is we have a lot of factors. So I developed a factor model of sorts. We've got like 23, 27 factors on it. And we started quantitatively ranking all of the cities and markets that I was personally interested in. So Florida, obviously, it's the fourth largest economy in the United States. Okay, it's growing. The demographics are good. It's investor friendly. I mean, you don't really have to be very smart to realize Florida, I mean, it's a slam dunk. But what's really surprised me was that quantitatively, when I put all of these things on a factor, right? Like you have information. Florida was consistently outranking everybody. And I'm talking even Texas cities, which was very shocking. So I did a little more research and across the board, because I think the problem is that you guys got hit so bad in 2008 and the recovery took so much longer for you guys that now, I mean, there's so much upswing and so much explosive growth, especially with the fact that people are moving, jobs are moving, people's incomes are rising. People's incomes are rising, but the pace of real estate pricing growth has far exceeded the pace of income growth. So there's just explosive upswing for multifamily and for the type of multifamily that we're doing.
And is there particular areas that in Florida that you like better than others, or is it just statewide that you're searching for a property?
Oh, no. There are very particular areas because in our business, we literally have to go down to the submarket as an example. So it can't just even be, say, look, we're really interested in Jacksonville. In fact, two of my partners are in Jacksonville today. But we can't just even say Jacksonville as an example. Within Jacksonville, we know certain submarkets like, say, Orange Park, Argyle Forest, Jacksonville Heights, but certain pockets of Arlington. The reason why we get so granular is, again, just that data-driven approach. We need to know down to the submarket and the zip code, what are the particular areas we like, what types of assets we like in that area. Then we run demographics reports, income reports, all of that usual standard stuff. We overlay this with our risk analytics. And then we can kind of, so then when we approach brokers, our conversation isn't, hey, we need to find, say, a multifamily property. Our conversation is, look, I need to find between 150 and 300 unit class B or C multifamily property in Orange Park, Jacksonville, 10 to 15% below market rents, between, say, $15 and $25 million. Don't show me anything outside of this criteria.
And so you mentioned Class B and Class C. Is that where your focus is on now and not Class A? And what's your reason for that?
Well, see, number one, the reason why most people, syndicators, they don't like to say this. Number one, straight up, the reason is most people can't even afford Class A. Most syndicators of our level, people who are raising, say, $10 to $40 million a deal, straight up, they can't afford Class A. So that is the big caveat, right? Apart from that, the big reason in Class A is that it's just that you just don't get the same level of returns because we're raising outside capital. So for us, we're targeting mid-teens as a minimum IRR. Class A, they're more stable trophy properties. So these will be, say, long-term plays. You hold these for 10, 15 years, you're going to get great returns. But not when you hold these for 3, 5, and 7 years. The math doesn't work out for our business model.
Now, let's talk a little bit about underwriting. I think this is something that you're passionate about. We speak with people every day trying to enter the multifamily market. Prices are very much escalated from cap rates have been compressed from when the market turned in whatever it was, depending on who you talk to, sometime around 2010. It scares us when, with some of the conversations we have with folks, we've seen units go, for example, in St. Pete from $32,000 per unit for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and now they're over in some cases we're talking about Class C properties, pushing northward of $100,000 per unit, and it frightens us a little bit when we speak with some of the folks that we talk to that they underwriting might be something that might not be much more than licking their finger and sticking it in the air to see which way the wind blows. So when starting our conversation with you, it seems like that was a topic that was also you're passionate about. So why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, we can spend a lot of time talking about it. And again, going back to the start when I came to Texas, underwriting was a big hang-up. Look, guys, I know at least valuations because I do this for a living. I know these stone cold pretty much, okay? And every single time I talk to people, I understand there's a lot, initially also, and even right now, there's so many pieces of the puzzle that I don't know that I rely on my team members for, right? But I know finance stone cold. And I would look at people's underwriting and I would be like, dude, like, what's going on, man? I mean, what happened? Like, did you just get drunk and just do this? What happened? And one of the big hangups for me, and I'm being brutally honest, because I think one of the big things, and Dallas, I think, seems to be ground zero for this, is that this is one of my pet peeves that I pay, like, say, when I have professionals, I have lawyers, I have physicians, the doctor who helps me, I have my accountant. Even though I have done a lot of accounting, I still hire a CPA. One of my pet peeves is that people think you can go to some, guru who's basically giving you a weekend seminar in like the airport Hilton Gardens Inn, right? Charging $200. And suddenly, as soon as you're out of this 3-hour seminar, you're a tax strategist. You can do the work of a broker. I mean, frankly, for all intents and purposes, you can run the country. That's what the pitch is. And look, the problem is there's a reason why, for instance, guys who work in, say, an investment bank or a hedge fund and all these places, for instance, parts of these places where I worked at, there is a reason why these guys straight out of school are getting paid 6 figures. And the average American isn't getting paid 6 figures. It's not because suddenly these people are stupid or the hedge funds and investment banks are stupid. The issue is that these people who are hired in these firms have a very specific skill set. And that skill set is looking at things inside out. And I'll give you a very basic example. The basicest example is that when you talk to somebody, be like, okay, that's great. You've shown me your annual results. Because this is a value add project, because most of these multifamily syndicators are value add. Why don't you show me your monthly results? Because you say, in the first 18 to 24 months, the pitch is we're going to rehab, renovate, all of forced depreciation, all of that stuff. Show me your monthly results. Nobody can show you monthly results. By nobody, I mean 9 out of 10 people. The reason why they can't show you monthly results is because either straight up people copy other people's models. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, but you still need to use your brain to copy other people, right? Or they frankly don't even know. I've had a few syndicators tell me, why would I even want to know monthly results? And I'm left scratching my head thinking, I was like, so I had to explain this to a few guys, and these guys apparently still didn't get it. I was like, look, what happens that if in March you straight up run out of cash, but if you just let the thing run till October, you recover your cash back, right? So you become solvent back in October. So if you're looking, you're looking annually, so it's just December to December look. you look like $1 million. But in the real world, nobody's going to wait 6 months for you, for the lack of a better term, to get your shit together. No lender, no broker, no property manager, no banker is going to wait 6 months for you to turn around the ship. So if you're not going to look at monthly results, well, how are you going to know what's going on? And the bigger point to that is, if somebody is taking these sorts of shortcuts at the start, what do you think is going to happen when the going actually gets tough? These people are continuing to go take shortcuts. And I don't think I would like to put my money with somebody who takes shortcuts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, Omar, when you're talking about these people, what do they typically use? Are they using simple spreadsheets? What kind of models are you seeing employed to help them do these underwriting?
Yeah, and just to further that question, I also like to, to hear your opinion. If you're somebody who might have owned 10 single-family homes and now is buying a 20-unit apartment complex, what are some of the underwriting criteria or tips that you would give these folks? So there's the two-part question, Stephen's and mine.
So number one, I'll talk about, say, the first thing is that, look, if you own single-family houses and you move up to, say, 20, 30, 50, 100-unit deal, it's a very different ballgame, okay? And the analogy is very simple that, just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at everything else. So right off the top, the business model is different, so you've got to look at things differently. Part of that is education. So I'll tackle the models first and then the mistakes or what people have to do. Models-wise, look, what people do is people go online, they pay some guru, whatever, like for a weekend course. And by the way, guys, a lot of these gurus, they couldn't find a real job. That's why they're gurus. Everybody's a lifestyle coach these days. But if you ask them what kind of lifestyle do they lead, they can't give you a straight answer for a reason. And that's for a reason, because these people can't find a real job. So that's number one. And my point is, look, if I need to go to the doctor, for instance, for whatever reason, for my, say, yearly checkup, I don't go to, say, my CPA just because he also happens to be a smart person. Right? These things don't jive. So if you want to play multifamily, and by the way, this is not hard. None of this is rocket science. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. Right? So if you want, I'll be honest with you, none of this is rocket science. It just requires organization and, just trying to dig deeply into details. So don't copy other people's models. Or if you are copying other people's models, at least use your brain so you don't inherit the same problems and the same errors that they made. Number one. Number two, what are some of the issues that I feel people are doing? Straight off the top, we talked about monthly results. Do monthly. I know it's painful. It's harder. It requires a higher level of technical competence. But please learn and do it. This helps you avoid a lot of so-called surprises that spring on people every single time they do a deal. Number one.
Can I just stop you? When you're talking of monthly results, are you talking of monthly historical looking back, or are you talking of looking at a deal and projecting monthly?
Both. Historically, you look monthly at the back, and when you're projecting deals, you look forward monthly results also. Okay. Because what you're trying to understand is, especially if you have rehab projects, right, where you've got to do a lot of extensive renovation, essentially the question you're trying to ask yourself is, when do I run out of money? Or when do I straight up run out of cash? And if you can answer that question and you're comfortable with the amount of risk, to be honest with you, everything else doesn't even matter. If you pick the right market and you have a decent asset, as long as you don't run out of cash and you have enough time, things will be fine. But that's the problem most people face. Most people just have a straight up liquidity constraint. They realize 6 months into the thing that they've run out of all the cash and they still have 50% of their project left. That's the biggest problem. And lastly, the big thing is, look, if you're buying on your own account, so if you're buying for yourself, that's a very different ballgame than, say, if you raise people's money or raise money from people and then you go invest that. Because it is a trust that people have given you their money. Getting somebody's money, it's a trust. And you can't take this thing lightly because it is a big trust, and not following up on this, not giving them the returns you promised them, it's going to make a bad relationship, but it's also, mildly unethical to basically take somebody's sweat, blood, and tears and just kind of be cavalier about it.
You had used some software to help you do these types of analytics. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that, please?
So no, what happened is we developed our own models, again, because I do this for a living. And then we know a lot of folks, right? So within our industry, everybody kind of knows each other. And a couple of the problems a lot of people were running obviously was the underwriting. But the other issue for a lot of syndicators also was, how do they calculate waterfalls? Waterfalls is just the sequence of payments that go to the GP, the sponsor, me, and the investors. And what kind of different structures can you put on? And that kind of starts becoming a more esoteric finance, right? And they kept having this. People couldn't automate a lot of these functions. So just to help our friends, and frankly for our own business as well, because I joked with my partner, I was like, look, even if nobody buys this, we will buy it because we need it in our own business. We can just give it to our analysts. So we're developing a software, Deal Analytica, that basically is a soup to nuts multifamily analytics software, which we put in all of these waterfalls. You basically get to see behind the hood what we do based on our over 2 decades plus of experience.
And in this model that you're developing, do you have some kind of assessment of risk? Because that's also an issue. Everybody has a subjective opinion of what the risk is. It's always been something hard to quantify.
Yeah, of course, because look, the question, look, we have an educational platform also. And by the way, I'm not a coach. By education, I don't mean you have to buy my seminar. I give you resources and, other blogs and podcasts that I've done. So the question that I tell a lot of folks is, look, at the institutional level, when you're talking investment bank, private equity firms, the first question most people who are professional investors, the question they don't ask is, what return am I going to get? The first question they ask is, what is the risk associated with this investment? Because as long as people or as long as an investor is comfortable with the risk, or rather that the risk of this investment matches, their personal risk profile, then a lot of other things get solved. Because rule number one is to not lose any money. If you don't lose any money, you're going to come out ahead, right? So in this model, what we do is not only do we run scenario analysis, all the sensitivity analysis, so you can see where variables are moving, what's happening. But on top of that, you get to consult with us, and we can tell you based on our experience, hey man, maybe you want to dial this down over here, maybe you want to amp it up over here. And these are the little tips and tricks you can do to basically get you to where you want to go with the least amount of hassle.
So tell us about the distribution of this software. Is it complete or is it in beta, or where are you with it right now?
So it's in beta right now because we're just testing out a few things, and we're running it again on a couple of our own deals, because the whole deal is, it's just not just a software, it's a reporting tool as well. One of the things that, again, we stumbled upon just when we were talking to our partners is that a lot of softwares either require you to have a PhD in finance because they're so hard to use, or they just look awful, right? So when you get outputs out of these things, it looks like a child made this for his high school project. So one of the big things for us was, in the business that we're in, is not only is the analytics going to get done, which is going to get done, which is happening right now, is when you get this and when you run your deal through this, you're going to have these really beautiful looking reports. And these are professionals. I'm not talking like colors everywhere. These are sober, professional, nicely done reports that basically you can take to your lenders, you can send to your investors, you can send to your lawyers. This is a complete out-of-the-box package. And the big thing there is not just analytics, but the reporting that you can get out of this.
So let me just go back to your analytics, because so many investors just focus, their bottom line is always arriving at the internal rate of return. Mm-hmm. And what I think you're saying is maybe that's not enough. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, look, I can tell you, we use internal rate of return, but there are so many ways, like any other metric, by the way. It's not just IRR specific. Like any other metric, there are so many ways to abuse the metric. And one of the easiest way that sponsors are abusing the metric is, and this is just this simple trick that I don't even know why most people don't pick up, is let's assume you acquire something, I'm just making up a number, at 6% cap rate, right? Now, conservatively, if you're valuing something, say, over a 3, 5, 7-year period, you'll say, hey, my exit cap rate's got to be, say, 50 to 200 basis points higher, which means 0.5 to 2% higher, just conservatively, right? This is your just ballpark figures. But what people do is on the exit, if they acquired it at 6%, they go 5%, right? And you don't have to be a maths genius to realize when you run the numbers that anything that goes to 6 to 5, your exit valuation is going to look so big that all your IRR suddenly starts looking pretty. You feel like you've got the greatest deal in the world. But that is just a mirage. because you weren't conservative. You played around with the numbers, you did some few tricks, and that's why you got this IRR number to show what you did. So IRR it's important, but again, if you don't know what you're doing, and if you're not conservative, there are so many ways to abuse the metric. It's not even funny.
So, Omar, is your software package in beta now? Can people buy it from you now? What's the deal with that?
So we've had our partners and a lot of folks who've expressed interest. We tell them to email us. We put them on our internal list. And in the next few months, what's happening right now, just to give you guys full disclosure, is we're running this on our own deals. So it's not just the analytics, which we've got down. It's also the reporting, because the reporting we're going to generate, we're just going to use it in our own marketing material. And once we've ironed out all the kinks in the next three-ish months max, would you email us? We put you on a list. And as soon as it comes out, we're going to send you a pre-release email saying, hey, it's out. You guys want to have a look? We'll show you all the bells and whistles, tell you what to do, and basically walk you through the entire thing. So even if you don't use our model, at least you know when you're looking at somebody else's numbers and results, what to look out for.
Yeah, is your intention to have it as a subscription kind of model, or will it be something that people purchase the software?
Subscription model.
Okay. And Stephen and I we'll talk to you about this offline, but we definitely would like to be included in that because we are curious about the product itself. And we also would like to give some feedback to our listeners today of availability and how it's going to work. So if you could include us, we would certainly appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I will.
So, Omar, you've written quite extensively and have some interesting thoughts on investing. I'd like to just ask you about the concept you mentioned of the all-weather portfolio and why it's important and what it means to investors.
So first of all, thank you for reading my blog. So I know I'm not the only person reading my own thoughts.
Well, maybe your wife now, you're married, that helps.
No, I can tell you my wife doesn't read it. She's made it very clear. Yeah. She doesn't mince words when she's talking to me. Look, the concept of the all-weather portfolio was developed by Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is basically the brains behind the biggest hedge fund in the world, Bridgewater. And what it basically does is, when the guy made a lot of money, and he's a very intellectually curious guy, so when he made a lot of money, he basically was coming to the conclusion that, look, I'm immortal and I'm going to die. So I want to essentially try to make something that when I pass it on to my heirs, they don't have to do a lot of thinking. It's just something that's going to automatically rebalance. It's going to figure it out. And I'm going to, at the bare minimum, I'm going to match the results of the market. So I'm not trying to be smart. I'm not trying to be dumb. I'm just trying to be average. And it's a very interesting concept. On my article if you go to our website, you can read about it. The beginnings are just fabulous. And there's so much data into it. But from a personal point of view, I can give you an example. One of the things that I saw was that my grandfather, for instance, he bought a lot of commercial assets, right? And it's been in the family for over 50, 60 years. And even right now, our business has gone up, our business has gone down with different, business cycles and everything. But some of the best, highest quality assets that we bought, they are the bedrock of our portfolio. And through good times and bad times, they have not only retained value, but they've kept giving us a return over and over and over again. It's like a home run I just keep hitting a home run on this thing. And that's what apart from Ray Dalio, that was one of the things that I had in my mind, that how does an investor basically develop something that they can essentially, for the lack of a better term, pass on to their kids? And their kid, it's like a finely tuned machine where you don't have to overcomplicate something. And part of what I talk about in that specific thing is, look, you have to understand your investing personality. That is straight up one of the most important concepts that I feel people don't understand. We're all hardwired differently. We all have different goals and objectives. And what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person. So if we don't understand our own self, we're going to keep making these weird decisions that are just not jiving with our personality. And then, it's a bit like the saying that it's better to follow a mediocre plan right to the end than to not follow a great plan, right? So it's that sort of thing. And apart from that, what it also talks about is the concept of risk-adjusted returns and just the fallacy of chasing IRR, because we have a lot of investors and we've had to educate them that, look, just because somebody tells you on a piece of paper that this is a higher return deal doesn't necessarily mean in real life it is going to be a higher return deal. So you have to understand that higher returns come with a higher level of risk. So you have to be comfortable taking that risk, and not comfortable, but you have to look at your portfolio, your needs, your objectives, and match each investment opportunity you get with that thing. So something that, for instance, works for you guys, I can give you a better example. What I'm doing right now, my father is not investing 100% of his capital into it. Why? Because he's 68. He is investing part of his capital into it, but he's investing in other more stable, quote unquote, assets, right? Whereas a lot of my investors are saying not 68 years of age, and they want a combination of income and capital appreciation. Whereas all my dad wants is income all day, every day. So if he didn't understand his investing personality, he didn't understand the risk-adjusted returns, he would never be able to make the right decision.
So, Omar, if people want to reach you and get registered for when you are able to tell them about your new software and also talk to you about investment deals, can you tell us how they can reach you? Also, maybe you can just tell our listeners what kind of properties you're looking for.
Yeah, what are you looking for? Is investors, properties? What's on your radar there, Omar?
Well, first of all, I'm always looking to talk to interesting people, number one. So it's right off the top. But in
okay,
Florida
so we have to be going then, right? Bye.
No, I think we've had a good conversation. We're going to stay in touch. Look, the typical, BC value-add multifamily properties, 100 plus units, ideally 150 to 300 units. Within Florida, it's Jacksonville, Tampa, and Lakeland right now. And specific markets, we can get more detailed. These have to have at least 10 to 15% below market rent. So we can come in, we can rehab the property, jack up the rents. And what we offer owners, for instance, is, look, we have a track record. You come to us, if we tell you we're going to go ahead, it's happening. You don't have to look here. You don't have to look there. You'll get the money at the time we've told you you're going to get the money. For our investors, what, again, they know is that we say what we do and we do what we say. So you come with us. This isn't a get rich quick scheme, guys. So, we're going to under promise and over deliver. And that's the way it is. And part of our whole entire thing is that we keep educating people through our blogs, through different resources and references we have, and just with our personal meetings. So how people can get in touch is they can go to our website. That's Boardwalk Wealth, BOARD Walk Wealth, one word.com. They can register for our mailing list just to be on the investor stuff and everything. And, get access to our deals and all of that kind of stuff. They can email me also at Omar, OMAR, at Boardwalk Wealth. So BOARD walkwealth.com. And we can talk about investing, the software, whatever you guys like. If I don't know the answer, I can connect you with somebody who knows the answer.
Terrific. Omar, really appreciate you taking the time and investing with us today. Stephen, anything else before we let Omar go?
Omar, thank you. We look forward to seeing you in Florida and hearing what you're doing, and we'll stay in touch.
I'm looking forward to seeing you guys too. Thank you very much, guys. It's an honor.
And that was Omar Khan from Boardwalk Wealth. Stephen, another investor from outside of the state, looking at the state of Florida and determining whether this is the right environment to continue to invest in multifamily. And we love to hear opinions from these professionals about our area, right? And also the deal analytica that he's got coming up seems to be very interesting. I'm going to follow that closely and see what comes of that.
Well, Eric, it's interesting. Omar comes from Canada and he's now based in Texas, but basically he can look anywhere in the country, and he's focused on Florida due to the analysis that he's done. So I'm also very interested to see this deal analytics software that he's developed, because let's face it, so many people just use a simple spreadsheet and don't account for all the risk and upside. And hopefully it'll be a really useful tool.
Yeah, we're going to be interested to see what becomes of it. So we're going to put in the show notes if you guys want to track yourselves as well and see what Omar is producing here in the near term with his beta on Deal Analytica. Please visit the www.investfloridashow.com site for this episode and tell us or fill out the form that you guys want to be kept informed on the development of the project. Stephen, besides Omar, what else can people find at the Invest Florida Show?
The place to go is www.investfloridashow.com. Also, download the app on your mobile device so that you can listen while you're driving or in the gym. We've got some great guests and lots of information. So we've got a history now, and we're always trying to stay updated.
A history almost at 4 years, Stephen. 4 years. Imagine that. Almost 200 episodes. We're rapidly approaching 200 episodes. It's pretty amazing.
Eric, I've been talking to you for 200 episodes.
Imagine that.
Look at the patience.
I know. All that abuse over 4 years is more than someone can take, but you've been a trooper standing up and taking it like a man, so that's appreciated. All right, buddy. Anything else before we let people roll?
Nope.
Until next time, guys. Hasta la vista.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Steven Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show.